Okay, fantastic. So in today's session, we'll look at writing acceptance criteria. So you've written great user stories, fantastic. That's the first element. That's done. And then we look at how do you get from user stories to writing acceptance criteria. And in writing acceptance criteria, there are various ways to go about doing that. That would be so in terms of flight scanner, just to reiterate the user story part. So that's a use case which you all should be masters of now. You know what use cases look like. You know what user stories look like. So user story, we have, as a user, I can navigate to the registration page, but these are written more in acceptance criteria format. But so I wouldn't pay attention to that. But use case 1, use case 2, use case 3, and so on. And when we get to the acceptance criteria,
Angie, you're not sharing your screen.
okay. Apologies, guys. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So in terms of acceptance criteria, so we have, as part of creating a detailed product requirements, we look at writing user stories. So we look at writing use cases, and then either use cases or a user story. In most cases, you simply write a user story and acceptance criteria. So once we're clear on the acceptance criteria, then that story is complete. But to move forward, there's a different element. There's the first thing that we'll do before we get onto the acceptance criteria is I would like to show everyone how to move on to. So you've written all of those user stories. I will want to help everybody practice creating them within Jira. So we'll do an example in Jira, and I will have to create. So that part of the assignment for this week would be you being able to create your user stories in Jira. So within the backlog, you'd have to come here. I'll create several epics in Jira that, and each one will have, because we have one Jira board, so each one will just be someone's name. So for example, I'll create an epic and call it Emmanuel, for instance, and we'll call this all of my user stories. I will be the one creating this, and I'll share the details with each of you, so you have to click on it to then go into Jira and find your name, and then we'll create all of your stories within that. I'll show you example. So I'm doing one now. Okay, done. Create, and then I'll send the link, so you can see here. Yes, that's the epic name. So perhaps what I'll do, all of Emmanuel's user stories, then it's very clear. And another one could be the name, Nonye. Yeah. So if I was in the backlog and Limited. So if I'm Emmanuel, I will get a link that will bring me straight to this page. So Emmanuel, I'll share this link with you, and when you click on it, it's gonna bring you straight to Jira on this page. This is all where you need to stay. So whilst you are here, you will click on Add a Child. This is applicable to everyone in the class because every one of you will get a link as well. When you click on that link, it will bring you here. And when you click on Add a Child issue, you can see Add a Child issue. You click on that. If I was to cancel, you see, I click on it, click on that, and it brings this. And the pre-selected version will be this. I will need to click on here to change it to a story, and then I will then add my user story. So whatever that user story is, I'll copy the first user story and I'll paste it here. User story number 1, I'll copy it and add as a user. I want to so that blah blah blah, and create. That will be saved. It moves on to the next one. I'll keep doing this. I'll copy and paste them until the last one. Is that clear? Any questions on this?
Yeah, very clear.
Do we all
Yeah,
do we all understand?
yeah, that's clear.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Okay, so just to reiterate, I'm going to create an epic and I'll send the link to everyone. I'll send the individual link to everyone. This link, for example, pertains to Emmanuel. So Emmanuel will receive his link and he will come straight here and click on Add a Child issue, and then that will come up and he will copy the first user story and paste, and like that all the way. And just to make it a bit more introduce a bit more clarity. So as we said from the onset, we're building this platform is going to be on website as well as mobile. So from a product's perspective, we're going to do two things to make that stand out. We're going to find a way to add, for those that can, yes. Okay, so this is a basic one. For those of you that are okay with just pasting this, that's fine. All you have to do is copy and paste the 31 user stories and you're done. A bit more advanced way to bring clarity for anyone would be, for instance, doing this. So these are known as curly brackets. So I'll put that and then I will put web. Yeah. And then I'll put the user story as I'll copy and paste, by the way. Yeah, so I'm pasting, just so you know. So in your case, you'll be copying these from wherever you have the user stories. You bring it here and you paste, and that would be it. And you click on create. That's done. And then on to the next one. Again, the curly bracket again. This time you will have mobile. And you paste. That's done. Create. So what you've done there is you created the user story that will be used for web. It's the same user story, but you paste it twice. So you're covering website and mobile app. So the same user story is done twice to cater to mobile as well as web. So that means you will end up with 62 total user stories in your epic, Emmanuel, because each one is created twice. And so the team that works on the web, they have their story. The team that works on mobile, they have their story. So you're serving two different teams. Does that make sense, everyone?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So by doing it this way, then one team doesn't have to serve one user story, doesn't have to serve all the entire team. So this brings clarity. The web team, they have their user story to focus on. They build the same thing, but they build it focused solely for mobile. And the web team, they build what they build solely for the website. And so this way of doing it brings clarity to everyone in the team. So again, you do the curly brackets for the next story, web, close it, and you put it, dash, you put space, and then you paste. Again, you create, next, mobile, you close it, space, dash, you paste, you close, done. So you're going mobile, web, web, mobile, all the way. So you end up with 62 different, 62 stories entirely. I hope that's clear. Someone has a question. Go ahead, Lugard.
Okay, please, I want to find out in a practical instance, would both user stories for the web and mobile always be the same? Like in all of the user stories in each of the stages, will it always be the same?
Absolutely. I'll
Okay.
show you an example. Flight scanner. So this is a website. This is a web, right? And you also need to think about Skyscanner also has a mobile app. Are you aware of that?
Yeah.
All right. So the team that builds the website, they have different skill sets. They use website domain technology to build this. The team that builds the mobile app, they use different skill sets to build that. But it does the same thing. The functionalities and the requirements are the same. The same way as search. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. This is a website. On the app, as a mobile app, this is what it would look like. You can select, let's say I'm using an iPhone. This is what it would look like. It's the same search, isn't it? Logard, you following?
Yeah, I'm following. Yeah.
It's the same requirements. I still need to be able to search a from. I still need to be able to provide a destination. So when you enter the requirements, it's the same thing. You're just specifying the platforms. You're saying in our mobile, we need to be able to search. So you don't have different requirements. So the user stories will always be the same. What you're saying is you're specifying. You're saying for our website, this is a user story. For our mobile, this is a user story. I'm not sure you guys are clear. I want to make sure this is clear. This is the website. It looks the same. A company doesn't build different products on web and on the mobile. We are the same company. It's just too confusing. So whatever we do on website is the same thing we will do on our mobile app. Yeah. So in terms of product requirements, you don't have different requirements. It looks exactly, the look and feel may be the same, but in terms of core features, it will be exactly the same. So you don't want customers saying, well, on the website, I can do things differently. And on the mobile app, I can do different things. So in essence, that's what we reflect here. These are, we have, at the moment, you have 31 business requirements. The company wants to be able to, let's say you've done that for a flight scanner. The company wants to be able to launch a website as well as a mobile application. And those features will be the same. So all you're doing is remember, Jira is a software delivery platform. And so when you put that here, if I can show you this, all this is we have website engineers and we have mobile app engineers. How can web engineers and mobile app engineers all work in the same ticket? It's not possible. So we need to create two tickets. Does that make sense? That's why we create two. We create two, so right now, for example, that's equivalent to me saying, all of you, I'm going to send you Emmanuel's user story, all of you add it all here. It doesn't make sense. Everybody needs to have their own. That's why I create. This is Emmanuel's user story. Emmanuel is going to add all of his user story in this. And then Lugard, you're going to have your own link to add all your user stories. Nonia, you're going to have your own link to add all your user stories, because everybody works on different things. So they need to add it in their own link. It's the same thing with mobile engineers and web engineers. So the mobile engineers, this is their requirements, and they will have their own acceptance criteria, to be able to say, yes, all of these things, we have implemented them. That's why we separate, we use this as a separation. So web is a visual distinction. Mobile is a visual distinction. So it just shows anyone in the company can come in and take a look and says, okay, well, the web team, these guys are so good. For example, can come in and say, wow, they're done. Again, web here, if they've truly executed it, and they can say, the web guys are amazing. They've done all that they have to do. It seems that our mobile people are slow. Does that make sense? So it's a distinction. We need to differentiate who's working on what. This is division of labor, essentially. Any questions?
Makes sense.
Okay. So what you take away from this is just the understanding of division of labor. That our web engineers, they have their own ticket to play with, and all of these are known as tickets. You can call them user stories or tickets, whichever way, or issue. There are varieties of name, but just be aware that they're all synonymous with the same meaning. You can call it an issue, or you can call it a user story, you can call it a ticket, whichever it's easier for you to remember. Go ahead, someone has a question.
Hi, I wanted to ask, you changed the to do to done. Is it the work of the product manager to do that, or the engineers that built the website or the mobile app?
Great question.
And then secondly, how do you link the developers, the web developer and the mobile app developers to the board?
Sorry, what was the last question? How do I do what to the developers?
How do you get to link the developers to the board?
Yeah.
How do you do that? For them to see that, yeah.
Great question. Again, so to your first question, I was just trying to illustrate why we bring that separation between mobile and web. And this is this needs not be mobile and web. It's just a visual distinction. It could be anything. It could be between your back and front end. For example, it could be something like this. Back end and front end is where you have two different sets of skills working on your requirements. So back end the people that build the application logic, and front end is the UI, what we see right now. This is known as UI, but there's a bunch of back-end logic that holds everything in place. Whenever I create something here, for example, if I come in here and click on this plus, it will bring this, right? So I could then come here and create. And once I create, I click on create here, there's a back-end logic that's triggered. It's like when I can only liken this to, like let's say you have two sets of people working together to fulfill a deliverable, and you work in a shop, and there are those that work in the shop floor, but items don't just get in the shop floor by themselves. They don't crawl. That means those people that work in the back room, that unpack all of the deliveries and then take those items to the shop floor. So you have back office, that's known as back office. That's the back door. They bring those things to the shop floor, and then customers get to see them. So you have two sets of, people there. You have people that work in the back office, in the back rooms, making sure all the items are unpacked and making sure they are ready, to take to the shop floor. And then those that are in the shop floor, they make sure that those items are displayed in an appealing way and make sure they can help customers. So that's a distinction. In tech, this is known as a UI. And then behind that, there's back end logic that holds everything in place. So the main point is, whenever there's a demarcation between responsibilities as a product or business analyst, because from a product perspective, you can come in and produce this logic. Your role as a product manager is to always bring clarity. How can I help people really understand what we are building? So clarity, that's your first point of action. And so you can introduce tags like this, where you say, okay, for anyone that comes, anyone within the organization that wants to come in our JIRA, we pride ourselves in making sure that they understand what we're doing. So these tags will bring clarity. If someone came here, they will know that this is a back-end story and this is a front-end story. In this case, back-end being the back-end logic and front-end being the UI, the user interface, the appealing, aesthetic that you can see right now. This is known as the UI. And so I use done just to signify what it can mean. So it's not saying the PM has to do that. The PM doesn't do that. The PM can do it if told to, if requested to do it. Let's say a developer is busy, an engineer is busy, then the engineer can say, hey, could you help me set that story to done? We'll say, please, could you set FS13 to done? Then I can say, sure, no worries. Carry on with what you're doing. I will help you do that. So it's collaborative. So I can do it, or the engineer can do it. So I use it here just to illustrate how it can also help for us to know what we have to do. So it shows us, for instance, in this case, we can see that when we had backend, I'll change it back to web. Done. So it helps us here to see that all of our web stories are done. Then in that case, we can say, okay, well, what's going on? The mobile team, you guys seem to be very slow. What's happening? It seems that your items are still in progress, for example, or one is still in progress, one has not even been touched. What's happening? So we can diagnose problems quite easily. That's one way. We can use these tags for a variety of ways, and it just continues to help us. Does that answer your question? Did I miss anything?
I think it does.
Okay.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
That's okay. Great. So I just wanted that distinction. It makes it very mundane, that you're gonna have to copy 62 different stories here. I think that's the fun part for me, because by copying and pasting 62 different times is gonna introduce discipline into you being able to, like, literally you write, you put this web in that curly bracket, and then the dash, literally following it. Don't try to be, like any other way. Just literally follow this format, this structure, and is that discipline. And therefore, anyone that sees how we work, it says volumes about us in tech. Someone comes in and sees that you've done all of these user stories, you follow the discipline format. It speaks volumes about you, and the team would be very happy. Everyone will just know that you're someone of excellence, that you bring your best into all that you do. And that's just the way to be. And with that sort of approach, promotion comes easily. Getting a job comes easily. And also, when you go for an interview, these are things that you can use as an example of how meticulous you are, how detailed and, conscious of just doing the right thing. These are examples that you can give. For example, how do you communicate your user stories? You can say, well, I write them either on Miro, for those of you that did, or I write them on Microsoft Word, like Emmanuel, like you did. And then once I've written them all, I then move them to Jira. I create if it depends. If we're building the platform for multiple platforms, then I ensure that there's that visual differentiation. That means I try to introduce some tags to indicate the web stories, and then try to indicate tags to show the mobile stories. And therefore, when I'm done, everyone is clear on what user stories, are for which team, and that makes it easier to support the engineering team. And anyone hearing that would, there's a level of depth that you've gone there that will be able to know that, okay, this person knows how to not only write user stories, but actually they know how to help the team to utilize them. That's the goal. And that positions you well. So any questions before I move on?
None from you.
Awesome. This is going to be very mundane. I'll warn you in advance. It's going to be, it's going to take you some time, maybe an hour or two. But yeah, it's a good exercise. By doing so, you will learn how to use, an aspect of Jira that is so critical for a PM. You can, for those of you, you can come here and even provide a description, a description of the user stories, like a summary. Again, you learn how to, you come up with a summary. For example, it could be this epic contains all of my user stories, something like that. You can make it even more detailed. Just being able to create summaries like this, again, helps. That means if someone comes here, they'll read the description, it's clear to them, and then they'll just browse, like, okay, well done, Emmanuel, this is great. And then that's all you have to do. Go ahead.
Okay, on the board, I cannot see the user case. Why is there not a user case on the board?
Okay, so the use case was introduced to help you know how to write user stories. That's a prompt. Now, when you know how to write user stories, you no longer need use cases. It doesn't mean you couldn't include them here. So you can come here, and this is for a singular user story. So within the description, which is what we'll get into soon, you can then put use case, you specify what it is, and then you get onto your acceptance criteria. But to your point, the use case was given to help you as a prompt to help you follow this formula. As I want to, so that was the purpose of the use case, to give you a prompt to help you be able to write user stories. Now, when you know how to write user stories, you no longer need a prompt, which is a use case. You should just know how to write them. If I give you a line, I give you a paragraph, you'll be able to deduce various user stories from that paragraph. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
That's okay. Go ahead. Another question?
Yeah, please, I want to know the acceptance criteria. Sorry about that. Can you give us like an example of how an acceptance criteria would be? For example, if you're writing a use case of creating a profile for Flight Scanner.
Yes, absolutely. That's our role today. That's the main class for today. I just wanted to take everyone through this because this will be a bulk of what you do this week. So by next week, what I would expect from everyone is all of your user stories would be up in Jira in the relevant link that I will share with you. And then once you've created all of your user stories, the next thing you will do is you will go to the very top. You click on the first one, and then you follow this format again. You add your acceptance criteria. You don't need to add the use case if you don't want to. You can just literally create that acceptance criteria, and then you then put scenario 1. You state what it is. User can blah blah blah. Scenario 2. So as many scenarios as possible. Don't worry guys, we're going to go into it now to learn how to write these scenarios. Scenario 3, scenario 4. So as many as are required, you create them there. And so you do this for every. So again, a trick for you. Remember, we have web and mobile. So if I've written the first one for web, all I have to do is just copy and paste in the mobile version. So I'll go back now and find the mobile one. Will be the same because it's web and mobile of the same story. So I'll paste, and that is done. And then move on to the next. So web again. Once I write the acceptance criteria for this, because these two stories are the same, FS15 and FS16, they are the same, right? So once I write the acceptance criteria for FS15, I'll simply copy it and add to FS16 and then move on to the next one. Once I write the first web, I'll then copy from that web and add to the mobile. Conscious that I'm trying to make it practical before I get into I actually get into us writing the acceptance criteria. But if you come here and try to write acceptance criteria for each and every one of them, it will take you almost 2 weeks. So we have 62 user stories in total. And as we said, web and mobile are duplicates. They're the same thing. They're just for different platforms. And now in our web, we do exactly the same thing. It's just the layout in our mobile is different, as I illustrated here. These features, these core features that you see right now on the web, they're the same features on the website. So the mobile and web, they're exactly the same. There's these boxes, you've just seen them. If I go back again, these are the same boxes you've seen here. There's nothing new. So as product managers, all we're doing is just showing a distinction to help us serve the team. So whatever requirements, whatever acceptance criteria we enter in FS13, you can see it here. Whatever requirements we enter in the web, we copy and we also paste them on the mobile. And then we'll come here again, we write new acceptance criteria, we copy them, we paste them here. So that means you write 31 acceptance criteria and the rest of them are just duplicates of what you wrote in the original. I hope that makes sense. Question, go ahead.
concerning the acceptance criteria, I'm still trying to understand. Does acceptance criteria mean like the
No, don't
task
worry.
is
Don't. We haven't done it yet. We're gonna do it now. Yeah, we
okay.
haven't done it yet. I'm just trying to show you where to paste them. So
Okay.
when we do it, you will know how to write the acceptance criteria. But then, how do you use it? I'm showing you how to use them. So right now, my focus is on just you understanding where to write the acceptance criteria and then how to maneuver them. So if you write your acceptance criteria in the web, then these two user stories are the same thing. 13 and 14 are the same. So whatever I write in 13, I'll copy it and paste in 14. And then and so on, move on to the next user story. I write the acceptance criteria, I'll copy and paste. So just wanted to show you guys how to navigate the placement of the acceptance criteria. But let's get into the actual acceptance criteria now, and everyone would have a good try at actually trying to master it in the same way we did last week with user stories in the session. So we'll take let's use some of the examples that we did last week. So the first one was on okay. So if we take create account, that's the use case, and then in here, what is the user story? User story is as a customer, I want to be able to create an account so that I can sign in as and when I want. Okay, if we take this user story, then we then go on to say what might the acceptance criteria be. And I come here on insert a table. Okay, can we all follow? So at the top we have scenario that we have the user story. Can you all see my screen perfectly? You can read it?
Yes.
Awesome. I assume you can. Fantastic. So you can see the user story here. As a customer, I want to be able to create an account so that I can sign in as and when I want. Fantastic. Just follow the format as I want, so that. So that's the role. This is the goal. The customer wants to create an account. That's the goal. And then what's the benefit? The benefit is so they can sign in as and when they want to. Okay? So we come here then. The first, scenario. So why do we use scenarios? So this user story here, customer wants to be able to do this, that's fine, but how do we test it? So acceptance criteria are a way for you to ensure that this goal here can be achieved by the customer. So you create a bunch of scenarios that you'll be testing. And by testing, it just means a bunch of scenarios that in a world where all of these scenarios are true, then that means that customer can do so. For those of us that have, let's say, PalmPay, PalmPay would also have all of this, which is customers can create accounts. How do they know that that's successful? When they test it, that they've created a bunch of scenarios. So you have multitudes of scenarios that you can test to ensure that that world that you're envisioning is possible. And so you say, I want customers to be able to create accounts. Okay, that's fine. But as a PM, how do you know that customers can do so? Customers can do so when all of these scenarios are true. And that means, from our case, we start thinking, what are the scenarios? All right, so the first scenario 1, is we know that this user story has been satisfied. And also from a testing perspective, by testing, guys, I mean that you don't just come here and just say a bunch of things that will never come to pass. So we'll know that this user story has been successful. So by testing, I mean successful. We know that this user story has been successfully implemented by our engineers when, if and only when, scenario 1 is fulfilled, scenario 2 is fulfilled, scenario 3 is fulfilled. So all the necessary scenarios, it can go on to 20. You can keep going on. So this can go on for as many as are necessary. That's the goal. So no one can tell you, actually, this user story doesn't have 6 scenarios. The user story has as many scenarios as are necessary to say this user story is done. So you can have as many scenarios as many as are necessary to say we have successfully implemented this user story. It's like when you eat until you're full. This here is the same. You write as many as are necessary to say we are done with the implementation. Sometimes you can only think of, let's say, just 3. And then an engineer comes in and says, actually, no, I think you've missed 2. And then they tell you what they are and you write them. And then someone else comes in, maybe the QA, a quality assurance analyst, and says, actually, guys, I think there's an additional scenario that you guys have missed. Let's include it. It's scenario 6, and they tell you what it is. So the point I'm making there is sometimes you won't be able to figure out all of the scenarios. So the goal is to figure out as many as you can figure out. That's the goal. And then when you share with the whole team, when you start discussing with the team would say, okay, well done, Emmanuel, that you've been able to figure out 4 of them. We, as a team, we feel like maybe it's actually only 3 are relevant. The last one is not relevant. You see, so the team can say, actually, only 3 are relevant, or actually, we feel like there should be 6. There are 2 more scenarios that you've not thought of. So we're going to help you scope them out. So this is a collaborative process, and you write the ones that you can write, and then the ones that the team can identify, they would help to complete when you start taking the team through it. Any questions before I move on? Okay, so let's write our first acceptance criteria. So we call them, as a whole, these are known as acceptance criteria. So we'll put here acceptance, you call them acceptance criteria. Why do we call them acceptance criteria? Because essentially we would not accept this user story as complete. We would never say it's done. Someone asked a question earlier, why do we say this is done? we can only mark this as done only if all of the acceptance criteria that are entered here are said to be completed, are said to be completely executed by the engineers. And the QA analysts, they say, yes, it's all done. So when you start putting your things, never set this is done. Your role is not to put it as done. Just, I was using done just to illustrate a point. So done will be selected by the software engineers, the guys that are actually coding, that are doing the logic building. Okay. So here you can see here that this is only in association with us being able to say the user story is done. So acceptance criteria allows us to say whether this user story has been implemented successfully, and by successfully we say, is scenario 1 done completely? If yes, we tick. If scenario 2 done completely, we tick. Scenario 3 done completely, all the way to 6. If 6 is not done, then this story is not fully completed. Why? Because all of the acceptance criteria have not been completed. So this is how we, from a product perspective, we hold people accountable. So we do this to ensure that whenever someone tells us that this user story is ready, it has been implemented and is ready to be shipped to customers. This is how we can approve that decision and say, yes, it's done. It's only done when all of the scenarios that are included in the user story have been fully developed by the engineers. If all of the user stories have not been fully developed, then we cannot say this is done. Okay, so let's write our first acceptance criteria. So we call them acceptance criteria. So the first one is a scenario. Scenario 1, we have to look back at the user story. It says, as a customer, I want to be able to create an account so that I can sign in as and when I want. So the first one is, you can, again, the English is important, try to write so anyone can read and understand without you being there to explain it to them. Because someone might be reading this all the way in Brazil. You're not going to be in Brazil explaining this to them. So you have to write it in good English so anybody can understand. That's key. So here then we say a customer can successfully register by submitting the account, you can say personal details, and then you can go on to specify those. You can say first name, last name, email address. These might be the core details. Again, you don't worry about perfection. You write the ones that you know. So these might be the personal details that come to your mind. Then you put them there. If someone else comes and says, yeah, we might want to also take someone's height, for example, I will question it, but okay, that will be up for debate. Why do we need someone's height to be able to create an account? So, but you write the ones that you can think of. That's all that matters. That's scenario 1 completed. And then scenario 2. A customer can successfully, so we said here, customer can successfully submit their personal details. So here then, that's be able to enter. Customer can successfully register by submitting their, and then here, a customer can successfully successfully create an account by clicking on the register button. That's one. That's that scenario there, done. And then what else? In order to register an account, there are a number of things so we can validate this. So we come here, log in, where someone doesn't have an account. And all you need to do is provide an email, and that's it. You all signed up. So it's not much based on the platform. All they're doing is just accepting email addresses with an email address, and that's all. And you click on the button and that's it, done. So in this case, it looks like there are literally only 2 user stories. So, any question on this? Okay, none. Let's do the next one. So I want us to do practice. So this one is on create a profile. Okay, so zoom in. As a customer, I want to be able to create a profile so that I can update my account. Can update my account with relevant personal details. Okay, so then scenario 1. A customer can update their profile with customer can update their profile with their name. Customer can update a profile with their email address. That's one. Remember guys, this is if you want to update your profile. Let's say you opened an account using a different email address and you've now changed your email address. You should be able to update that. So again, it will be a version of this, the last name. So here will be first name. Update the profile with the first name. You can update a profile with the first name. You can update a profile with the last name. You can update a profile with a new email address if you need to. And you can also update your profile pic. You can add a new profile picture in your profile. A customer can update a new profile picture. That's 4 scenarios. Again, you look at the user story. I want to be able to create a profile. Okay, great. When you create an account, a profile is created for you. So then you're now going to add the information. And in your profile, again, what else did we have here? And that's all. Any question on this, guys? Questions? Okay, none. It's your turn. Let's do some practice. Again, we wrote most of us have written these user stories. So now let's practice writing acceptance criteria to those user stories. So I'll share this board so we can all get that practice, and we would do that here. I don't want us to use that. Okay, guys, I've just shared the link. If you can join me now. So come in the board, come to where I am in Miro. We'll do some practice on our acceptance criteria writing. So the example we're going to use is a password reset, which is the user story would say, as a user, I want to be able to reset my password so that I can gain access to my account. Okay, that's the user story. So how do we know that this is completed? So we need to have here the scenarios. So I would create multitudes of this. So pick one, and you can begin 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay. Are we all in Miro? I'll bring you all to me. This is where we should be. So pick any of these tables, pick one of them, and each of them they're all the same. I've just copied them. So you literally need to look at the user story. It seems I repeated a mistake across them. Are we all clear on what to do? Does anyone require an explanation? Please, I much rather interactions at this level. Don't suffer. I cannot hear you, Sahid. I've shared the link on the board, on the meeting call. Check the Google Meet. Godfrey, can you share it with Sahid?
Yeah.
Okay. Are we all clear on what to do? Okay, I'll put a timer. I'd say maybe 3 minutes. 5 is too much. So in 3 minutes, just think of how many acceptance criteria you can come up with for the user story, and we'll review. Thanks, guys. The timer has begun. Let's go.
Said, you can check the link on the platform, the group, WhatsApp.
Do you need more time? Maybe give it 1 more minute. I see some of you are still writing. Great. Let's review what you've written so far. Who wants to talk through what they've written? I can do that. Just zoom in straight. I can see here Nonier. Okay. Customer want to reset password successfully. Okay. This is like last week then. Last week you guys did the first attempt and we didn't get it, quite well, and then subsequently we just smashed them. We understood it clearly. So here Nonier, this, much like user story, also has a formula, like as A, I want to, so that. So when it comes to writing scenarios, and this is the base level scenarios we're writing. There are two formats that we'll write these scenarios in. One is the base level, which is just in English, just plain English. The second one is using a framework, which we'll get to shortly. So with what you've written, you repeated user stories in them. So that's not it. Reset password successfully. Clicking on the reset. No, that's not it. And I can see another one here. That's not it. I can also see another one here. This is Saeed. You put them as... No, that's not it. So it seems we struggle with that. So let's do it together. If you all can come back to Google Meet so you can see my screen whilst we do it together. So I assume everyone can now see my screen. Fantastic. The user story says, as a user, I want to be able to reset my password so that I can gain access to my account. That's the user story. Okay. That being the user story, our goal is to be able to find out when we will know if this user story is completely implemented by our developers. And the scenarios here also act as requirements in guiding the development team to know what to do. So it's like you want to cook. Ultimately, you want a pot of rice. But what do you put in it? Scenario one is an ingredient, maybe onions. This may be some protein, whether that's beef or chicken or fish. So that could be scenario 2 could be beef, scenario 3 could be chicken, scenario 4 could be fish. So all of the ingredients would be separate scenarios. So in software engineering, we call those things, those are acceptance criteria. These are if you cook in the end and you tell me it contains meat and beef and all of that, and I can't really see it, then that means you failed. That's not ready because I cannot see those things. So these scenarios here are ways that we'll be able to say, yes, a customer can successfully reset their password. How do we know? So how do we test whether someone can successfully reset a password? So the first thing we have to make sure can be done. What is the first thing that can do? So the first thing we want them to be able to do is actually to reset my password. The scenario for this is going to be, okay, someone comes in, we have to identify who they are. So customer can self-identify. Yeah. So you self-identify. How do you self-identify? You provide a relevant piece of data about yourself that the system knows about you. So customer can self-identify in order to reset a password. And then scenario 2, in order to move on, in order to gain your access to your password, to reset it. And then once you've told us who you are and we can validate who you are, then customer can enter a new password. Customer can confirm the new password, can repeat, retype the new password in order to confirm. Yeah. So these are the three scenarios that are relevant in this case. I think all of us have access to online platforms. If we wanted to reset our password, it's very easy. You go to the platform, you click on the forgot password journey, and you'll be able to see this. If we go on, let's say, which platform? Let's say I don't have Twitter, but if I went on Twitter and I say sign in, you can see here forgot password. This is what we're referring to. In order to reset my password, in order for me to say, I have my username, but I've forgotten what the password is, then I will have to follow. This is known as the forgot password journey. If I click on this, you'll see what's going to happen. It brings me here. Yeah, find your account. Enter the phone number, enter the email, phone number or email that is associated with your account in order to change the password. You don't just change the password. We have to identify who you are. That's what customer can self-identify. That's what we said. You can self-identify in order to reset the password. Once you self-identify, you give us the phone number, then the next thing, we'll confirm. We'll send you a link. So in fact, there's something else. So customer can enter an email or phone number to receive a link to reset password. So what is the process then? You self-identify by providing your email address. So you can frame that in two ways. Customer enters their email address and is sent a link. No, because that's here. So customer can self-identify in order to reset a password. Okay, so you provide that email address. You select which way you want. So customer can choose. So you enter a phone number or an email. So either one, we ask for these details in order to validate who you are. And once we know who you are, then an email is sent to you. So clicking on that email will take you to a new box that you can then provide a new password, and then you retype that password to validate. And this, we can all test it. See, this is a process. You come here and you provide an email address, let's say just a fake one, fake@email.com. You see what would happen. Yeah. So they want to know your username. So you validate whatever that username is. That doesn't exist, of course, but essentially you validate, you self-identify who you are. That's that process. It's all here. You self-identify, and once the platform is happy with you, they will send you a link. So with that new link, you can click on it, and then you'll be able to enter a new password. Customer can self-identify. Let's simplify this a bit. So I would say customer must provide your phone number or email address to validate who they are. And then once they do so, they receive a link, and clicking on that link will then allow them to provide a new password and subsequently validate that, and that will be that. This is quite a challenging one, but nevertheless, all of them, once you understand one, you know how to navigate them. Any questions on this? Guys, we learn by asking questions. When we don't ask questions, we keep a lot. If you don't know what questions to ask, just say, even saying I'm not clear, I think it gives insight. So these are very difficult. Today's class is a very difficult concept, and your feedback in terms of whether you're understanding and then being able to tailor to where you're not understanding, that's good as well. Because then if you understand some elements and some elements you don't, we can break down. I can further simplify in other ways to help you understand. This is critical. This is one way of writing acceptance criteria. The other way is following something called the BDD format, which we will do shortly. It's known as BDD. So it's a framework, behavior driven development. So before I move on to this, any questions on this? Any thoughts, insights, feedback? You don't understand? Why is it that we have to self-identify as it pertains to reset password? Why is it that customer has to click on a link to reset a password? Why is it that customer has to enter a password twice? These are all valid questions. No question is silly. So ask away. The floor is open, guys. Any question? Any thoughts? Otherwise, I'll assume that we're all clear on this. We're all experts. We get it. Is that the right assumption? Okay. So, in terms of acceptance criteria, there are two ways to do it. That's option 1. And this is option 2. Option 2 is doing it with a framework called BDD development, behavior driven development. So we'll bring this here. So with BDD then, behavior driven development, so it's the same user story. It's just different ways of writing them. And again, I like to give you multiple options so you can choose whichever way you're comfortable with. So you can do, there is no best practice, there is what way you're comfortable with. Now you can go in a company and they may be using option 1, maybe using option 2, or they might be using a hybrid to say whichever way you feel best to write your acceptance criteria, go ahead. That's usually the case. Right, so with behavior-driven development, it will be in a language known as given, when, then. We'll put it here. This language, you say given, when, then. So the given is a precondition, known as a precondition. And then the when is when is a condition. When a condition is met. So when a condition is met, you say what is the result, the output, which essentially given this precondition. So given this precondition, when the condition is met, this is the output. This is what should happen. Essentially, this is what should happen. And this is the formula. Again, like in high school, we had formulas. We had them in this format. You see something like 2a plus 3 is equal, for example, 6, let's say 2a is equal 1a, right? Then something like this. This is a formula. We just rearrange to find what a is, and that's what gives us the answer. A is equal to 1, and that's it. So if we add this here, we'll be able to come up. Once we know what a is, we're good to go. Yeah. So this is a formula in the same way that's a formula. So we find the missing conditions, and given a user story, we have to use this formula here, given, when, then. So given there's a precondition, when a condition is met, then what should happen? Yeah, so that's what this means. You get a given, when, then. So as usual, this is what it will look like. Here's just the text to explain, to help you understand. But actually, it will look like this. Given, when, and then. It will look like this. Given, when, then, and then you then add your precondition. What is your precondition? Will be followed there, and then what is your when condition? When a condition is met, you state what that is. When blah 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 is met, then this should happen. So let's put it into practice here. So we've said here that in scenario 1, we've set it up here. So we said given a customer, the precondition is, in order for you to reset your password, you need to have already created an account. That's a precondition. If you don't have an account, how can you reset a password? What are you resetting? You don't even have an account. So our precondition, remember we said here given. Whenever you have given refers to a precondition. So here then we say given a customer has already created an account. Right? That's the given. That's the precondition. When the customer when the customer has forgotten their password, when the customer has forgotten their password, and the customer clicks on forgot password button, then we want something to happen. We want them to navigate, or you can just keep it simple. The customer should be taken to the forgot password page to follow the forgot password journey. So you can make this even better by putting it in bold so it's clearer. So you can see here we introduce an AND. So there's something called a logical AND. A logical AND, it's you use it to add more. So given when, so the first one is the first when the customer has forgotten their password. Okay, that's what else. So and here just means what else. What else are you trying to add here? When the customer has forgotten the password, okay, and the customer clicks on forgot password button. As we know, everything is driven by UI. The customer has to indicate that they want to reset their password. You saw me do it here. You saw me do it on Twitter here. I clicked on, let's say I'm here. I'm trying to sign in and I don't remember my password. So I click on forgot password. So that's the same thing we did here. When the customer has forgotten their password and the customer clicks on forgot password button, we saw it here. I clicked on that. That takes me to the forgot password journey. And that's what we said here. Then the customer should be taken to the forgot password page to follow the forgot password journey. That's the first scenario. That's just the first scenario. The second scenario will then go on to say, given the customer is on the forgot password page, because we see here we've taken the customer to the forgot password page. So the precondition is the customer must be on the forgot password page. So given the customer is here on the forgot password page, when the customer enters their email address, again, there's going to be another logical and it doesn't have to always be an and. You put an and if there needs to be one. There's no rule on when you should. There could be multiple ands as well. There could be, as many ands as you deem possible. So when the customer enters their email address and the email, we need to check, and the email address and the I don't want to complicate it, I want to keep it simple. And the email address exists on the system, then an email should be sent to the customer Right, so we can see here, given the customer is on the forgot password page, when the customer enters their email address and the email address exists on the system, because if the email address that the customer enters doesn't exist, then nothing should happen. You just show an error. All right, so that's one. Nothing happens. However, if the email exists, then we want to be able to send an email address to that customer. So this is a positive scenario. A negative scenario is, I'll copy that and we'll put it here. Given the customer is in the forgot password page, when the customer enters their email address and the email address does not, this is negative, right? Does not exist on the system. So I've put it in bold. Again, this is a good way to emphasize things. Does not exist on the system. Then an error message should be displayed to the customer. That's it. So this is a positive. A positive is where the email address actually exists. The customer will just receive an email. And where the email address does not exist, we show them an error message on the screen. Display an error message, display, and then an error message should be displayed on the screen to the customer. And here, if I came here and put a fake email that doesn't exist on Twitter, do you see nothing happens? Sorry, we could not find your account. Did you guys see this? Can you see it here below? Sorry, we cannot find your account. It comes up briefly. See if I can capture it. Yes, I did. Yeah. Can you guys see this here? See the error message that they displayed? Yeah, sorry, we could not find your account. So that's in alignment with what we're discussing here. So you can see that's a negative scenario. So Twitter or X, they've tested this. This is what some product manager somewhere, product owner or business analyst, they sat together and they came up with all of these scenarios. So you can see this is a positive one and this is a negative one. You need to test for positive and negative. If customers are sent a link, they want to also make sure that people that actually don't have an account don't get an email. Otherwise, that's how people hack into people's accounts. And then the next one, given that a customer has received received an email from the platform when the customer clicks on the email, the customer clicks on the email, clicks on the link sent to their email address, then the customer is navigated to the reset password form. Yeah. Here then, your question might be, is there also going to be a positive and negative scenario? Yes, you think of it. What if the customer clicks on the link and the link doesn't work? What should happen? So you think, it's like you're playing chess. You always have to think in advance. And those advanced moves, you call them scenarios. So we'll stop here. I don't want to overdo it so you don't feel exhausted, but we're going to continue on this next week and make sure that each and every one of us can really master this in the same way we've mastered user stories. But there will be a takeaway exercise for you to practice beforehand. I'll create a template in Microsoft Word and Excel because that's the best template for creating these, and share with you. Just give it your best attempt and see how you get on. And next week we'll resume and try to master this again so everyone can really get a hang of it, because this is critical. Don't worry, it seems right now like it's quite challenging, but it really isn't. This is what you're going to be doing day in and day out, so you're going to really master it in your role. Any question otherwise? Okay, so the take-home exercise I will share by tomorrow, which will be, I'll create a bunch of the user stories and also put them in that template in Microsoft Word and Excel and share with you. You can choose whichever format you want to use. If you want to use Microsoft Word or you want to use Excel, and then you would try to create the acceptance criteria and the relevant scenarios. And then next week we'll dive in, and it will be a hands-on session where each and every one of us, we did this beforehand, Nonya. I think maybe you weren't here, but we did review the user stories. Emmanuel shared his screen. I did offer from the onset. Does anyone want to go through? Emmanuel and Charles and Saeed agreed to share their user stories and just talk us through it. And they did a thorough work on it. I did review yours. You did, you also did it thoroughly. So well done on that. Because you sent it on Slack to me. Awesome. So for next week, then it's gonna be I'll send the user stories and acceptance criteria so you can expand on them, much like we've been trying to do in this session. But next week we'll dive in deeper and ensure that each and every one of us, please come with collaborative energy and be ready to just get your hands, because that's going to be a practical session. I want everyone to dive in. It cannot be a thought exercise where you're just listening. You won't master it in that way. It has to be practical. And so there will be a bunch of those, like we did last week. There'll be a bunch of those exercises to really help us, master the concept. So next week, come energize and let's get this mastered. And also, so there's 2 exercises to create the user stories in Jira. That's one. And just the creation of user stories. Don't worry about acceptance criteria. We'll do that the following week. So we just need to create acceptance criteria using either Microsoft Word or Excel, and I will send that template to you. Is that clear, everyone?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Don't worry, this acceptance criteria, it seems right now like it's quite complex. It really isn't, I promise you. And once we master it, I think we use next week to really get a hang of it, and everyone should leave very clear on what to do. So I'll give a few user stories for you to practice. If you struggle, don't worry. It just means Sunday will be critical for you, and we'll go through deeply and try to master it. It's not difficult, I promise you, because you do these over and over and over, and it's going to be like your bread and butter, that straightforward. So the key exercises for the week then would be to create your user stories in Jira. That's one. And I will send like maybe 5 user stories for you to try and test how well you understand the acceptance criteria that we've been doing in today's class. If you don't understand, that's okay. We have next week to again do a working session where everyone would be practicing and writing them together. And by the end of that session, you should definitely understand. Great. So thank you all and have a good week. We'll see you next week. Any questions, just drop a message on Slack.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.